Well, hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to first start off by introducing myself. My name is Brandy Belton, and I am here with Truckers Against Trafficking. And I am so very pleased to be here with all of you today to speak to you on the realities of domestic sex trafficking and how Truckers Against Trafficking and the trucking industry are working hand in hand to combat it. So I want to first begin by defining what human trafficking is. So what is human trafficking? And basically, it is modern-day slavery, as it is the exploitation of a human being through force, fraud, or coercion for the purposes of commercial sex. And when you hear that, we think prostitution, stripping, pornography, brothels, and most typically pimps, as well as forced labor or labor trafficking. And when we hear that, we think agricultural fields, sweatshops, workers not being paid for their labor or being forced to work long hours or even being held against their will. And all of this is being driven by a trafficker, a victimizer, a person who is in control and making a profit off of someone else's back. And all the while, these people finding themselves in situations they literally cannot get out of. So, I want to take just a minute here to talk to you on these two crimes because oftentimes when I talk about human trafficking, the term human smuggling comes up. And these two crimes are incorrectly used interchangeably, and it causes a lot of confusion. But I need you to please understand these are two very distinct crimes, where smuggling is a crime against a country's immigration laws. And it occurs when someone illegally transports another person into a country that they do not have permission to enter. And it can sometimes result in some very large fees. Whereas trafficking does not require movement. Someone can, in fact, be trafficked out of a room in their own home and never be moved. In fact, a survivor who works with TAT had been trafficked by her own mother out of a room in her own home, and she was never moved. Men came to the house, men were brought to the house, and she was never moved, and all of this took place in the home that she was being raised in. And as traffickers prey upon vulnerabilities, they tend to target anyone, using their hopes, dreams, fears, immaturities, and disappointments as weapons to exploit their bodies for a profit. And those who are, and I'll say anyone who can be susceptible to the manipulative and forceful methods that traffickers use, but those who are in foster care, young adults aging out of foster care, homeless, runaways, LGBTQ, and those who come from abusive homes are particularly at risk. And the vulnerabilities that traffickers prey upon is exacerbated by poverty, racial discrimination, migration status, and the fear of law enforcement. And all factors contributing to this crime disproportionately victimizing those people who are Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. So, in order to get a better understanding of this crime, I'm going to break it down into 3 simple truths. And truth number 1, slavery still exists. And although there was state-sanctioned slavery in our country at one time, and now it is illegal to own another human being, the realities of this crime do in fact show that traffickers enslave, torture, and profit off of their victims on a routine basis. And in regards to the scope of this crime on a global level, there are over 40 million victims of human trafficking, 40 million, who generate $150 billion in profits for their traffickers on an annual basis. National Human Trafficking Hotline reports that this crime is happening in all 50 states, and there's not one state where this crime does not happen, including DC. And although there are plenty of adult victims, there are thousands and thousands of children who are at risk of being prostituted in the US each year. And just like we find inherent racism in so many places, There's inherent racism in prostitution and thus in sex trafficking. And disproportionately, those victims of human trafficking are women and girls of color. And disproportionately, those buyers of these women and girls are white men. So combating human trafficking is one way that your companies can push back against the inherent racism that is so rife within so many of our current systems. And just to really bring the reality of this crime home, national nonprofit Polaris reports that victims are being forced to have sex up to 20 times a day. Now this really should read, victims are being raped up to 20 times a day. And probably all of you, either through your work experience, personal lives, family, friends, coworkers, know of someone who has been sexually assaulted, and you know how that one incident can turn a person's life upside down. Just imagine this type of violence happening to you or you or you over and over and over again, day after day, because that is the reality of a victim of sex trafficking. And truth number two, if I say the word pimp, you probably all already have an image that's popped in your mind of what a pimp looks like because of what you've either seen in the movies, on TV, or even a music video. But the reality is, a pimp can be anyone. And right here is just a snapshot of some of those who have been arrested on human trafficking charges. And if you'll notice in the top left, he was a former firefighter. And in the bottom left, he was an Army veteran. And although this crime knows no racial, gender, or socioeconomic bounds, I'd especially like to draw your attention to the woman in the top right, as she was India's Deputy Consul General for the state of New York when she was arrested on December 12, 2013, and accused of forcing her housekeeper, who happened to be someone she brought from her own country, to work 16-hour days for $3 an hour, and fraudulently obtained her visa. So, as you can see, this is a crime of power, control, and greed, and traffickers can come from all sorts of backgrounds. And truth number three, while most people want to believe that this crime only happens in faraway places and faraway countries, we all know this simply is not true. Human trafficking is a local crime, and it is happening right here in your neighborhoods and in your backyards. And if you'll notice here, it took me just a couple minutes. Oh no, that's a mistake. You'll notice here, you may have heard of this case right here, Lawrence Sorensen and Aldair Hadza, who in January of 2015 pulled an RV into a Virginia truck stop, at which point police were immediately called out to the scene. And once the troopers got there, they asked if they could enter into the RV. And Sorensen and Hadza were just almost giddy with officers, where they were just over answering questions, offering them cookies, and even at one point told them to sit down and relax. And I don't know about any of you, but that's not normal behavior for someone who's being investigated by police. So upon entering into the RV, the officers noticed that there was a third person in the RV. This young girl, she kept her head down, she had her hair pulled up in a greasy bun on top of her head, she was very pale and heavily made up with makeup, and she kept her eyes down the whole time that they were in there. And at one point, Sorensen and Hadza pointed out the front of the RV to the officers to a landmark that they wanted to go and visit later on that afternoon. And at that moment, that's when this young woman looked up, signaling to the officer that she needed help. She was then removed out of the RV, and once she got outside, she started to tell her horrific story. She was just 20 years old, had been kidnapped from her Iowa home 2 weeks prior, had been raped, tortured, branded, and just burned all over her entire body with instruments that they had heated up on the RV stove. And men were being brought out to the RV because she was being posted on Craigslist, and she was being raped at that point. And she did mention to the police officers that she managed to run away one time. And when they tracked her down, they brought her back to the RV and then proceeded to jam nails into the bottom of her feet so she couldn't run away again. And at that point, the officers had taken her and she was examined by doctors. And if that call hadn't have been made that day, bringing law enforcement out to the RV, the doctor said that this young woman would have died of malnutrition and the torture that she had suffered. So in response to these realities, Truckers Against Trafficking have recognized that the trucking industry, through their sheer numbers, extensive travels, and the natures of their jobs, could provide an extra set of eyes and ears to law enforcement in the recovery of victims and having their perpetrators arrested. Especially since, in the course of their everyday jobs, professional drivers are oftentimes in places where they could come into contact with a victim of human trafficking. And some of those places could be a truck stop, a rest area, a hotel, motel. And although this list is not exhaustive, because traffickers will take their victims wherever there's money to be made, and they are counting on everyone to believe that the person being sold is just a prostitute. So, if all drivers were trained and knew what to look for and then immediately reported, just imagine how many victims could be recovered and how many perpetrators arrested, because that is our goal. And in addition, TAT has replicated its models to the bus and energy industries, recognizing that these are two critical industries that need to be activated in this fight. So therefore, TAT exists to educate, equip, empower, and mobilize members of the trucking, bus, and energy industries to combat human trafficking as part of their regular everyday jobs. And we have 3 goals to accomplish this. Our first goal is to train all the industries that we work with on how to recognize and report human trafficking. From our niche-specific training DVDs to our wallet cards, online portals, apps, and decals, TAT offers comprehensive industry-specific training so your workforce knows how to recognize and report human trafficking, and it's all free. And right here, like if any of you have seen us over at our booth, we have wallet cards, which you can scan. It has QR code on it, and these are apps that you can download onto your mobile devices or tablets, which is also free for any Android or Apple services, and it gives you all the information you need right there at your fingertips, so you don't have to fumble around trying to find the card. You can have it right there on your phone. TAT also works extensively with law enforcement to facilitate the investigation of human trafficking and has co-created its models with state patrol and state agencies that intersect with transportation professionals, and it's being used across multiple states. And we firmly believe that the industry and law enforcement need to be partners in closing the loopholes to traffickers and bring together federal, state, and local agencies with industry stakeholders on a routine basis to do just that. We are also asking everyone to consider adopting the anti-trafficking in-persons policy with a demand reduction focus alongside TAT training. Not only is this a wise move from a risk management approach, as the FMCSA is enforcing the federal law that created a lifetime ban on a CDL for any individual who uses their commercial vehicle to commit the crime of human trafficking, but it will also show your workforce that purchasing commercial sex while using company work time and company work product will not be tolerated. And our final goal is to marshal the resources of our partners to combat this crime. And of course, the only way we can do this work is through our significant nationwide partners and industry members who offer their time, experience, financial support, and influence to further this work in a myriad of ways. And right here are just some of our North Star sponsors, which is the highest level of sponsorship that TAT has. And without these partners and everything that they do to contribute with TAT and work with us in so many ways, that it is just truly inspiring. And you also do not have to be a company or organization to sponsor with TAT. We do have several individual donors who offer their time and donations to TAT as well. And without all of our corporate sponsors or individual donors, we would not be able to do the work that we do. And to date, we now have over 1.2 million professional drivers registered as TAT trained, who have made thousands of calls into law enforcement and also into the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which has resulted in the recovery of victims and having their perpetrators arrested. In fact, in the last 5 years alone, National Human Trafficking Hotline reported that 41% of the cases that truckers had called into them involved victims who were minors. And this just goes to show you that these drivers are in the right place at the right time, and their calls are critical in recovering the most vulnerable among us. And this is what it's all about: TAT in action. TAT gives out an award called the Harriet Tubman Award, which is the highest award given to any industry member who makes the call on behalf of a victim. And actually, right there, Arian, who is the second one on the slide there, he's here today walking around. He is one of those recipients of that award. And then this guy right here on the end, Kevin Kimmel, was one of those who made the call and received that award as well. And I'm gonna let Kevin go ahead and tell his story.
I finished up night deliveries early in the morning. Ended up finding a truck stop about 40 miles outside of Richmond, Virginia to take my 10-hour break. So I was filling out my paperwork, and 2 slots over there was an RV. This one was back in the truck lot, and it didn't look typical. It was kind of beat up, had black curtains. I saw a middle-aged man walk out and knock on the door. Well, the door opens, he goes in, and I'm still filling my paperwork out. And I looked over, and I saw what looked to me to be a young girl look out. And then she vanished. Like she was pulled away from the window and the curtain was pushed back over. And I thought, you know, this is a bad situation here. Nothing was reminding me of what a family situation would be. And I thought about it another couple of minutes, and I said, you know, this could be something pretty ominous. And so I just got the smartphone out, gave him a call and told him where I was and what I thought might be going on. And not 5 minutes later, 2 sheriff vehicles and 2 state troopers pulled in. And from there, kind of unwound. I feel real good about being able to put 2 people in prison that don't need to be out floating around.
You know, traffickers have done an amazing job convincing us that she's just a prostitute and that we should just turn and look the other way. And this is a really highly effective business model for them, isn't it? Because we're all looking away, and they and the buyers are effectively raping America's women and children and making a ton of money while doing it. And they've also convinced us that this problem is too big, too dark, and too heavy for us to do anything about it. But they are wrong. If traffickers count on our ignorance and our apathy, that nobody knows and nobody cares enough to do anything about this, then we must know and we must care. And time again, history has borne this out. History has shown that when good men and good women do care and do know and get involved, they can actually change a person's life.
Truckers Against Trafficking is like the glue that's going to bond the industry. You guys are the ones that are putting out the materials. You're putting out all the information. Everybody's got smartphones now. Everybody's on Facebook. I mean, just the sheer barrage of the information has done nothing but good. When they go through the orientation, they see the video, they get the decals. They also get the wallet cards. And the wallet cards is just a simple way to refresh your memory about what it is that's going on out there. If you see certain traits, this is the number to call. And, you know, at the end of the day, you get your load there, you get it there safe, you get it delivered on time, and maybe you save somebody's life. What I've learned is human trafficking is a huge problem. You know, and now I have an understanding there's an oppressor, there's the oppressed, and they're not doing this to make money for college or whatever your thought might be. They're doing this to stay alive because there's somebody on the other end of it forcing it.
That's the power of the trucking industry. That's the power of someone who has the courage to take a second look. And that's what trucking is able to do. That's what taxi drivers or bus drivers or law enforcement personnel or hotel workers, whoever you may be, wherever you are, if you take that second look, then what you're able to do by getting involved is you are effectively helping to change a life. And that's what we're asking for. You know, Kevin Kimmel had the courage to look again. Kevin Kimmel recognized, you know what, there's something not right. And he had the courage to make a call and get involved. And now he's helped unlock her pathway back to freedom. No matter what it may look like on the outside, no matter what it may seem like that moment in that parking lot or wherever you may be, that person is a human being. She's so much more. She is not just a victim in that moment, but she is a survivor. She is an overcomer. She is somebody that has a future. And we need the courage to look again. We need the courage to see that our actions in this moment will unlock the path to her freedom.
Well, I got a call from the state police. They wanted to know if I could release my phone number to her, and I said, yeah, that'd be fine. And I think she was still in a hospital. And she told me how much she appreciated it. And she said something to the regards of a guardian angel, and it's like, no, that's not the case, you know. I just made a phone call, and I'm glad I could help you, and I hope you go on and have a healthy and happy life. Try to put this thing behind you. We need to get back to a place where if somebody is in need, that we step up to it. There's a lot of things in life that aren't so obvious. This isn't one of them. My name's Kevin Kimmel, and I'm a trucker against trafficking.
So, how can you all get involved? Well, I'd like to first ask that you TAT train all of your drivers and then take just a few moments to register them on TAT's website, because it's important that we can keep track of all companies who are using our materials. Secondly, consider adopting the anti-trafficking in-persons policy with a demand reduction focus alongside TAT training like I previously mentioned. And why? Because if there's no buyers, there's no victims, and therefore there will be no sex trafficking. And last but not least, use your influence to spread the word. Talk to your drivers for sure, but also talk to those fleets who you know are not here in this room and any other industry members who you know need to hear this message. Put them in contact with TAT and let them know what you're doing. And then please, take this extremely important message home to your dinner tables and to your children and instruct them, because they need to know who pimps and traffickers really are, and they need to hear it from someone who they know loves them and who they can trust. Because human trafficking is the greatest human rights violation of our time, And while the majority of people desire to make an impact with their lives, to go beyond the bottom line, to ensure that their careers affect a lasting change for the good, not everyone is in a position to make this a reality, but you all are. TAT is working, and the trucking industry is rallying behind this movement. And each one of you here today is a critical player in ensuring that more lives can be saved. Thank you all for your time and being here. My name is Brandy Belton. My information is up here on the screen, and any more information that you may need, you can contact me through that way. But thank you for your time.